There it goes, yeah.
Good morning. This is June 18th, and this is our walkthrough observation feedback that I'm giving to Mrs. Lyndsie Schur. She's the math teacher here, and I observed her teaching a summer school math lesson, so much more small group than what we would see in an everyday instructional setting. So be a great place to observe what intervention looks like. So can you tell me about your objective for today?
Yes, so what I did is I looked at their STAR data to see how they recently did on the I guess it was April test, to see where their holes were. And so each day I try to like pinpoint those reporting categories. And so today we really worked a lot on the exponential functions, just because that was a kind of weaker reporting category for us. And so today we just worked on the exponential functions.
Okay, so I noticed that you did recognize the gaps that your learners had in that slope intercept that you were going over today. So can you tell me more about, given those gaps, what the most important thing was that you could model for them?
So really it's for them a lot, this is going to sound kind of silly almost, but reminding them too that they have this formula chart, because sometimes they think, oh my goodness, I have to memorize all this, and they don't. And so reminding them, one, hey, we're going to start here and look and see what is the formula we need to use. And so I really tried to like really point out, okay, you have a point and you have a slope, and so we're going to use the point slope form, like pointing out those key pieces maybe that would connect with them. And so just showing them we're going to find it there. And so then from there, showing them like we're going to label so that way we don't get our stuff mixed up. We want to make sure that we have everything labeled so I know exactly what to plug into my formula. Just really showing them those things to kind of reiterate and kind of practice that and almost become muscle memory for them. So that way whenever they do take it, the test again next week, that they're like, oh yeah, this is what I did. This is so they can visualize me doing it.
Right.
Versus just letting them do it and be like, oh wait, that's not right. Really showing them how to do, to do it. It really helps them.
That's good. So one thing that I noticed was you did point out those formulas like you were saying, and you also continued to remind them, hey, you have this calculator here. When you caught an error that one of the students was making and he didn't catch how to share back that decimal that you were looking for when you had shared like a fraction with him, and you said, what is the decimal of this? And he gave the wrong answer, and you said, remember, you have your calculator.
Right.
So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I don't know why our kids are so scared to use the calculator. Maybe because they feel validated whenever they can do it right, themselves. And I understand that. And so so sometimes they know it, but you can tell they're hesitant to say things. So I always remind them, even if you think you know it, just use your calculator. Like calculator is going to tell you the right answer, so long as you put it in right, but it's going to tell you the right answer. And so sometimes too, just reinforcing that I think this is what it is in my head, so I'm going to check it, gives them even the more validation that they need to know, yes, because our kids get really down on themselves. They really think that they're not good at it, or especially if they're having to come to summer school, they really don't. And so just reassuring them that you know it. And if you don't, you have something here that you're going to have, on test day, or you're going to have even in real world, like we're always going to have a calculator, whether it be on our phone or what have you, but they have that. So they need to remember that they always have that resource to use. And there's nothing wrong with using it. I mean, I have to use it myself. Sometimes I just do it just to make sure I'm, not getting something wrong, So.
Well, that brings up a great point, because you were saying, and you have to use it yourself, because that's the action step that I would have even suggested is maybe even modeling that think aloud process as though you were that learner up there. This is how I do this. So do you think you could add a think aloud tone to your modeling?
So can you tell me what you mean by that? Like,
well, actually, yeah, I can. I have pulled up so we can share our screen, right? Where do we share our screen? Share the notes, share screen.
There you go.
Okay, I have pulled up a think aloud video I wanted to show you of a teacher modeling a think aloud.
Okay.
So what would you think about in terms of a think aloud? Say like this is your first bullet, but you need to do a think aloud, but you also want to do a think aloud that rides us home, but you don't want to be too wordy when you do it. So for example, So if I know that I need to hit these two first points, right? Skeleton is made mostly of tissue called bone. Your body cannot stand without its skeletal system. So I may read this like, can you touch your backbone, your ankle bone, and your knee? These are bones that are all part of your skeleton. Your skeleton is made mostly of a tissue called bone. And you might think aloud like, yeah, I know what bones are. So skeletons are made up of bone. Without the support of your skeleton, you would fall into a blob-like heap. Uh-oh. Now I'm starting to understand why these bones are so important. Let me keep reading. Just as a house could not stand without its wooden frame, your body cannot stand without its skeletal system. Let me take a moment to think about that. When I think of a house, I know the walls hold up a house, and if the walls fall down, the house is going to fall down. So now I'm knowing that without my skeleton, I would just be falling down because I would not have anything to pull me back up. I bet you that's a pretty important point that we're going to want to take notes down on. So then from there, what did you notice about how I did it versus how you did it today?
That you were thinking exactly within the text, like almost not stopping, but almost kind of like giving a slight, I don't even know the word to use. Like you're using an inflection in your voice and also kind of pausing after the important sections that you want to hit on and doing a really small think aloud, literally from the text. So you're not just restating the information, but you're pulling it from the text, like coming to conclusions based off of what you're reading and how it's building.
Right. So tell me what your next steps are for this, the science unit next week. This next week, upcoming plans. What is your plan?
So making sure that I have the text in front of me in terms of just going through it beforehand and figuring out what information is crucial for them to get down, but then going through the text and focus, like highlighting it to focus on it. And thinking of ways that I can come up with a way of doing a personal think aloud that's quick, that shows that I'm starting to make connections throughout the text based off of the information and that I'm able to understand how it's building and what the information is.
Okay, so we're gonna come back over here to my Zoom tab if I can find it.
Down here.
Oh, yes, probably so. Good thinking. See, it helps to have somebody here with me coaching me through it, right? So that's actually leads me right into what I was talking about of how the teacher can model that process of here's where my thinking gets stuck sometimes.
Right.
Like you were saying how sometimes you need the calculator.
Right.
So if you would even talk the students through that of sometimes I need the calculator, sometimes I struggle right here. Here's how I might work this problem out if I were trying to get this decimal in my head. That's not the right step that I need. And then modeling, slowing down, kind of putting yourself in that learner's shoes of here's where my thinking may have gone awry, you know, because sometimes I think the students may lack that metacognitive skill of thinking about their thinking. They may not know where their thinking went awry.
Right.
So you already have targeted the gaps so well, you know exactly where their thinking is stuck, but I'm not sure that they know where their thinking is
So
stuck.
like he was thinking the 3/2 was 3.2, but
Right.
what does 3/2 mean?
Right.
Like, let's talk, like, does that mean it means 3 divided by 2?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking when I was watching that video.
Yeah.
Kind of reminding him that this is what this means. So would 3 divided by 2 be 3.2? Well, no, that doesn't make sense. Kind of reminding him of that and showing him how that I have to remind myself that too.
Yes. So breaking down, here's where my thoughts were in this process. Here's what I thought of to help myself get through this. Okay,
Right.
now tell me where your thinking was.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's targeting that error and then narrowing the focus even
Right.
more. So it's like you have this real good objective and that's clear. So now how can we go even deeper into that to help the student understand their own thinking?
Right.
So that they can wait, here's where I'm getting off in my thinking so I can fix it next time.
Yes. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So with that effective analysis in place, the key is to design that effective think aloud. So the model is to model replicable thinking steps. So that's what you were doing on the board, you were really modeling and breaking down those steps for the learners. So I would just slow down a little more and say, this is what I'm doing here.
Right.
And thinking that through for them
Uh-huh.
so that the students can follow that model and the thinking, not just the procedure.
Right,
So
yes.
it's pulling out that metacognitive skill that they need there.
Right.
So do you think you could add a think aloud tone to your modeling when you're modeling for
Yeah,
them?
for sure. I think that that would be a really good piece that I need to work on myself as a teacher, just to help my students and to know this is the why behind it. Because our kids, especially in this century, want to know the why on things, on everything. We get mad at kids asking, well, Mom, why do I have to do this? They want to know the why and they want to learn.
Yeah.
And so even in the classroom, that teach them why we're doing this would help too.
And I think you already have so many key pieces already there in place, because like you're saying, like these are students who didn't pass the STAR test,
Right.
that you want to build up their confidence, you know? And I think that when you match that vulnerability of here's where I've made these mistakes, you
Right.
know, they're going to see, oh, wait, Ms. Schur made these mistakes. Then it's okay if I'm making mistakes in my thinking too. Then I want to follow her lead here and figure out where my mistakes are being made.
Right,
You know?
yes.
So I think that that would help even connect, you know, that trust piece even
Right.
more, you know?
Yes.
So the action step then that I would like for you to write is my action step is to model the thinking aloud, not just a procedure. And after you finish that, I want to highlight for you these other areas of the walkthrough that you did so well on, that are our campus goals of what our administrators have in place that they're looking for.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so could you share with me your action step then?
Okay, so model the thinking aloud, not just the procedure. So really talking about like, this is the thinking, this is where I'm at on what I think whenever I see that piece, or, you know, the problem or what have you, and see, this is where my mind's going. So let's work through this together and see what we need to do for them.
Very good.
Yes.
I agree. Okay, so what I noticed is that Ms. Schur had the objective posted on the board. The students were able to see the objective the whole time that they were working through those steps. So they clearly knew the objective, but also you brought it back to the objective several times. You reminded the students, hey, remember, this is what we're working on. This
Right.
is what we're working on. And I heard you ask the students a couple times, what are we working on again? And
Right.
and wanting them to restate that objective, if not, at least to recall what it is
Right.
what we were working on.
Uh-huh.
And you were aggressively monitoring the instruction in the room, not just because you were actively up and engaged, but because you continued to seek feedback from the
Right.
students. You were asking them, where is your thinking here? Give me an answer here, you know?
Uh-huh.
And when you noticed that they seemed stuck, you were probing with questions.
Right.
So you were actively monitoring where their thinking was. And I did see the right first talk second, which is an objective that our school has in place. I want you to write down what your thinking is, then you can share it out loud.
Right.
Especially a good strategy with these students who, you know, have that gap there in
Yes.
where the understanding is. So you needed to see where their thinking was and for them to write that down
Right.
and then express it out loud. And you were really able to pull reluctant learners, you know, into that place of verbalizing their thinking.
Right.
And I didn't see the exit ticket in place, but like Ms. Schur explained that this is summer school, so the dynamics are different, and I'm sure that there will be other opportunities to show that learning, but this was more of a formative assessment than it was to see that exit ticket in place. So I'm excited to see where these students go next week. I guess it's the end of this week that
So
they'll be.
the test next Wednesday is whenever
Okay.
we'll have our math test. Yes.
So
So-
she's working intensely to prepare them to retake the STAR test.
Yes.
So thank you so much for
Yes.
giving me your time today and being so open to receive the feedback.
Yes.
It was
Anytime.
excellent to just see quality instruction, and I can tell that you really have planned well the lesson, and you understand where those gaps are, and you have a good target of where you want those learners to go. So
Yes.
thank you for
Well,
being
thank
so
you.
open. I appreciate it.